And welcome to the Ray Hanania radio show, brought to you by the U.S. Arab Radio Network and sponsored by Arab News, the leading English language newspaper in the Middle East, at arabnews.com. It is Thursday, October 31, 2024, and this is Season 4, Episode 12. We're only a few days away from the presidential election, and over the past several months, we've focused on election aspects, interviewing Arab Americans and Muslims about what's happening on the street level. How are they going to vote? What are the issues? We've explored a lot of it. We'll see what happens next week on Tuesday, November 5th, when voters go to the polls. But in this election, probably more so than any prior election, Arabs and Muslims are playing one of the most significant roles in deciding the election results than they ever have in the past. And part of that reason is that this election is going to be decided on the votes in swing states where Biden and Trump had narrow, razor-thin margins. Biden won, for example, Michigan and several other states by small margins that Trump had won previously. It turns out that a lot of those swing states have Arab and Muslim concentrations of voters, and they could make up and decide how those razor differences between the two sides play out in the election. This week, we are going to discuss the upcoming elections with local state candidates in the Arab American community, discussing the battle between Trump and Harris to win Arab and Muslim American votes in the final days of the elections. Arab and Muslim Americans become very important for the first time, as I've said, in past presidential elections, mainly because of their large presence in those swing states. My first guest today is going to be Democrat Ishmael Ahmed, who is part of a coalition of Arab American leaders who this week endorsed Kamala Harris for president during a meeting in Detroit. As you know, Harris has been reaching out to Arabs with not much success, and in several cases, created some embarrassment when during meetings, Arab Americans were expelled from the meetings without any explanation or reason. But Ishmael has been a longtime activist in Michigan, and he knows the Arab and Muslim community very well. He was a founder of Access and the director of Access for 32 years, which provided a lot of social and community services in the greater Detroit region, and which has expanded, I believe, to many states. And Ishmael Ahmed headed the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services under former Michigan Governor Granholm, who was later appointed to head the Department of Energy for the Biden administration. And Ishmael was also a vice chair of the Democratic Party in Michigan for more than a decade. He was an auto worker, and he worked on overseas freighters. He also is, like me, a U.S. military veteran. So we'll talk to him about how Democrats have really risen over the past week and expressed stronger support, vocalized their support for Kamala Harris. At the same time, we will speak with Republicans who have been building support for Donald Trump among the Arab American community. And both the Democrats and the Republicans have really focused on Michigan as a key state. We're going to speak with Dr. Bishara Bahbah, who is the chairman of Arab Americans for Trump. Bahbah was a longtime Democrat who switched parties following Biden's unconditional and all-out support for Israel's government genocide against Palestinians in Gaza this past year, and now with the expansion of Israel's wars and violence against Lebanon, killing tens of thousands of civilians in Palestine and in Lebanon. Dr. Bahbah will explain how President Trump now has a group of Arab Americans he can counsel with, talk with. One of them is Dr. Massad Bulus, who is the father of President Trump's daughter, Tiffany's husband, Michael. And that gives him proximity and influence over how Trump will approach the Middle East and the Arab community and Muslims, differently, possibly, from the way he did during his first term in office. So we'll talk with both of these candidates in a few minutes. The Ray Hanania radio show is broadcast live every Thursday at 5 p.m. on WNZK AM 690 radio and rebroadcast on Monday at 5 p.m. on the U.S. Arab Radio in Michigan. It is also available online at arabnews.com/Ray Radio Show and broadcast live on Facebook at facebook.com/Arab News. So this Thursday at 5 p.m., hopefully you'll be watching this live on Facebook at facebook.com/Arab News. You'll also be able to find it on YouTube and, of course, on our podcasting site at arabnews.com/Ray Radio Show. You can get more information on me at arabnews.com or on my personal website where I post my columns and my observations at hanania.com. We're going to be right back with both our guests right after these messages.
ArabNews.com, bringing you breaking news from across the Middle East and the latest on Arabs in America. Get inside the latest headlines with expert analysis and insights at ArabNews.com. Join over 5 million Facebook fans and over 10 million monthly readers. ArabNews.com, news that matters to you.
Hey Michigan, let's think beyond the sink and learn where the water your family drinks every day comes from. Private wells and public water supplies allow homes across Michigan to draw water from different sources, like lakes, rivers, and groundwater. Tap into the facts about your home's water source and learn about your home's water quality to protect your family's health. Visit michigan.gov/care for MI drinking water. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Life for Relief and Development has now been rated as one of the best charities for humanitarian aid. Life's humanitarian projects span the globe, and Life is celebrating its 30th anniversary of providing essential life-saving aid to people and communities in 36 countries, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. Where there is life, there is hope. And when disaster occurs here or around the world, including being one of the first responders to the Turkey-Syria earthquake crisis, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. We are looking to help the earthquake victims, and we take 0% overhead on emergency donations. So please help improve these efforts. Learn more about our involvement to help the helpless and bring hope where it's needed most, and make your tax-deductible donation to Life for Relief and Development now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's 248-424-7493. With more than 30,000 successful in vitro fertilizations, IVF Michigan is now ranked as one of America's best fertility clinics according to Newsweek magazine. IVF Michigan fertility centers are the recognized leaders in high-quality fertility care. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 9 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. A founding member, American board-certified Dr. Nicholas Shama, is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. He has performed over 20,000 successful IVF cases, and it's helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. When it's time to get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at one of America's best fertility clinics, call IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio toll-free at 855-952-9600. 855-952-9600. Every Thursday in Michigan at 5 p.m., award-winning columnist and journalist Ray Hanania hosts the Ray Hanania Radio Show, presented by the U.S. Arab Radio Network on WNZK AM 690 Radio and brought to you by Arab News newspaper. This season's focus is on the U.S. presidential elections. Will it be Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., or Dr. Jill Stein? Veteran political analysts and elected officials will join as guests. Join us every Thursday at 5 p.m. on WNZK AM 690 Radio for the Ray Hanania Radio Show, presented by the U.S. Arab Radio Network, a special on the presidential elections. Shows are rebroadcast each Monday at 5 p.m. Get to know more about the show at ArabNews.com.
And now I want to welcome my first guest today, Democrat Ishmael Ahmed, who is a part of a coalition of Arab American leaders who this week endorsed Kamala Harris for president during a meeting in Detroit. Ishmael has been a longtime activist in Michigan, and he knows the Arab and Muslim community very well. He was also a founder of Access and the director for Access for 32 years in Michigan. And he headed the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services under former Michigan Governor Granholm, who was later appointed to head the Department of Energy for the Biden administration. That's Granholm, who was appointed to the Biden administration. And he was also a vice chair. He has a long and very solid resume, by the way, of the Democratic Party in Michigan for more than a decade. And he was an auto worker, and he worked on overseas freighters. And most importantly, especially to me as a veteran myself, he is a U.S. military veteran. Ishmael, thank you so much for joining us on radio. It's so good to talk to you again. It's been many years since we actually connected.
Thank you for having me. It's good to see you as well, Ray.
So normally, when Arabs support one candidate or another, nobody cares. But Michigan and a few states that have huge or large Arab and Muslim populations are the swing states that apparently are going to decide this election between between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Michigan is probably one of the most important, and you're in the heart of it. This week, we saw some Arab Americans support Trump and some Arab Americans, including yourself, support Kamala Harris. Give me the scenario about what is the Arab American community grappling with? What is the issue, and how did you come to where you're at today?
Well, first of all, I think all Arab Americans, Muslims, and a whole lot of other people are horrified with what's happening in the Middle East. 42,000 dead, 150,000 wounded in Gaza alone, 1.5 million people homeless, and many more becoming homeless and being killed. Death in Lebanon. I have lost cousins in 2 cities in southern Lebanon in the last 2 weeks. So the horror is true for all of us, all Americans, and we want it to end. We want a ceasefire. We want equity for the Palestinians, a Palestinian state, and we want to live side by side with Jews, and Israelis in particular, and they've suffered loss too, and our heart goes out to them as well. We need peace, and so all of us, no matter who we are supporting for the elections, have been working hard to make that happen. The uncommitted, in particular, I think tactically in Michigan, tried to force more movement on the issue. And frankly speaking, Kamala Harris has been more sympathetic. We believe that's real, but there's been very little put on the table. But when you match that to what Donald Trump is saying, he's called for a Muslim ban, which he says he will reinstate the very first day he is in office. He's called for internment camps, and none of us can have doubts that we're one of the groups that will end up in those internment camps. He's called for the arrest and deportation by the military of 11 million immigrants. Some of them are our families. They're mostly hardworking and contributing to the economy. In fact, our economy wouldn't function without them. And on Palestine, Donald Trump opposes a Palestinian state, has called for Netanyahu to continue his bloody approach to the war until victory, whatever that is. And I can go on. You have a huge list there. And also, we're not single issue. We have been a part of coalitions throughout the United States for civil rights, human rights, women's rights. And so for all of that, many of us came together to say, while we're not happy with progress, we don't believe we can make any progress with Donald Trump. And so Kamala Harris is the basis for us to continue the coalition, to continue to fight for peace. And so we have no choice but to support Kamala Harris. And then let's look at what she says about the Middle East. She calls for a ceasefire. I think she could do more, but at least she's done that. She has talked about the horror in Gaza. She calls for a Palestinian independent state. Now, Donald Trump says there should be a Palestinian state, which Israel controls. So the difference is gigantic. And again, I have a family. I care about things like the environment, which is an existential issue. My children will live and breathe and survive in a country that could be disastrous. We need to continue our work there. And for so many other reasons, we pulled together a group of 17 major Arab leaders, people from the Yemeni community, people from the Lebanese community, Christians, Muslims, people who are business people, political organizations, both national and local Arab American organizations, to call on people to vote for Kamala Harris and to continue the struggle and continue to work for peace in the Middle East.
Now, I know when I was in Dearborn for the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee, there was a huge attendance there. I think over 1,000 people. I'm not sure if you were there. I didn't see you, but you may have been there. But there seemed to be a different attitude back then. It was much anger against Trump, a lot of anger against Biden at the time, and also Harris. What changed, do you think, over the last 6 months? I mean, what has changed in the Arab and Muslim? Is it the realization that, okay, we got our anger out, but now we have to make a choice? Is it the lesser of two evils? What is it that changed, do you think, in your opinion?
Well, I think we've come to the conclusion, some of us, not all of us. Some people will throw away their vote and not vote at all. Some people will vote for a third party, which can't possibly win and will advantage Donald Trump. And some people have even come out and supported Trump. We have two Arab mayors. So the honest expectation is the vote will be split. And we needed to set up a poll to make it clear what was at stake and to bring as many Arab Americans as possible to that poll for Kamala Harris, for the Democratic Party, and for our future.
So do you think part of the mission, in other words, was you could see the community split, but you had to get active to get out there to talk to the Arab community? Because the news media has not been addressing this really, I don't think, very well. I think Arabs and Muslims are taken for granted by the mainstream media. They look at us as statistics. They don't seem to care about what really imports us, what's important to us. So you're saying that you feel that by coming together like this, the Democrats behind Harris, you can take her message, present it to those Arabs that may still be skeptical.
Yeah, I think that we want to continue the fight on the Middle East. And that includes with Democrats and with Kamala Harris. However, there is no dialogue with Donald Trump. There is no chance for forward movement with Donald Trump. And we are trying to make that clear to Arab Americans. How they will react is to be seen. I don't have a crystal ball. I imagine that Arab Americans are going to go every which way on this. Many of them will sit it out, but I'm hoping that's not the case. And we had Arab American leaders like Dr. James Zogby, who is a major Arab American leader, yes. Speak out. We had people like Ali Belhaid, who countered the mayor of Hamtramck, who came out and supported Trump and said, Yemeni activists ask you to vote for Harris because it's not in our interest to do anything different. We had civil rights lawyers. We had a person who was the head of the Arab Chamber of Commerce. We had, I could go on. It's a powerful list of people, but there's a lot of pain out there too. It's real, it's palpable, and so I can't tell you how it will end up. I will say that the media coverage has been skewed. Uh, the big story, the big ooh-ha story,
Right.
is that Arab Americans are mad and they're not going to put up with it, and they're going to vote for Donald Trump, and they're going to vote for, or they're not going to vote, or they're going to vote for a third party or whatever. And they have really undermined those that are going to come forward for Harris. And I think it'll be a large number of Arab Americans.
Do you think the Democratic Party maybe should look at this as a sign that maybe they haven't taken the Arab community serious and Muslim community serious enough? I mean, you wouldn't think that they would be in this situation. Trump lost Michigan to Biden by a razor thin, but still a majority based on the support of Arabs and Muslims. Do you feel that maybe the Democrats kind of took that for granted? I'm not asking you to criticize the Democrats, but just assess. Maybe at the time they didn't think, they just took us for granted and thought, okay, we can move ahead. And then they hit this wall and everybody was shocked by this.
Well, I think a couple things. One, Arab American power in the Democratic Party is increasing and has been. They're taking more and more note of us. Having said that, we're new to Democratic politics, and we have not built the base. We have not invested and not done the work to be palpable. In Michigan, we have made some progress. You know, we have several people on the Central Committee. They do not run a campaign, a statewide campaign, without an Arab American on the ticket. The governor's office always has several key Arab Americans. So we are making progress. And one of the things to worry about is if we do not support Harris and she loses, they will think that we no longer are part of the coalition.
Oh.
And if she wins, they will come to the conclusion that they don't need us. Either way, it's not in our interest. In our interest is to continue the discussion, to continue to struggle with them, and note that 70% of the party supports us on the Middle East. 70%. Our allies in the coalition on civil rights, on human rights, on women's rights are there with us. And so it's not us alone. We have the basis for real struggle. We need to continue that struggle.
Has there been anything specific when you sit down with representatives from the Harris campaign or the Biden administration that you think that they could have done better and can do better that you want to see changed? Have there been specific, requests other than, we don't want Trump to come back? The Democrats have been better. Is there something more than that, though? Is there some expectation of response from Harris if she wins?
Well, she has asked to meet with us before the election and to talk about after the campaign and how we can move ahead on the Middle East and other issues. That's a good sign. It's also we've specifically asked her to simply say that the use of weapons by Israel has to follow the same laws as every other country we give weapons to. That means much of what they are doing in Gaza could not take place.
Right.
And they have the ability to stop it. We're going to continue to pressure for that.
Hasn't that been part of the problem, though? Because there is a federal law that says that weapons that we provide to foreign countries can't be used against civilian populations. Why hasn't anything been done, since, for the past year, do you think, to address that? Is it the Democratic Party is a little divided between the extreme pro-Israel and those that are moderate pro-Israel?
Well, first of all, the Democratic Party isn't in charge of everything. And the Republican Party is completely on the other side of this. So there is no congressional support for stopping this. Okay. And
So
secondly,
that's a Republican issue, in other words, because of their influence in Congress.
and not only in the Republican Party, there is money from APEC going to both aisles in gigantic amounts. Many Democrats who run for office, the Senate, the House, have been defeated by APAC money. And so, even on the Democratic legislative side, there is a problem. What there is on our side is that 70% of people who agree with us and will fight with us. And we want to mobilize that 70% to fight for real progress. And we can't do that if we leave the party or do not support Kamala Harris.
I
And she,
know that. Go
and
ahead.
she knows that there's 70% of Democrats. And so there's a great deal of pressure on her after the election. One of the things you want to look at is the electoral map. Yeah, you may lose Michigan, although they're up 2% right now, whatever that means, without Arab Americans. But you probably will lose Pennsylvania if you do those kinds of things during the election. Can they afford to do that? So there's a lot going on, a lot of decision making going on. We hope that the pressure on Kamala Harris will be less after the election, and our ability to dissuade her and others from the path that they've taken will be possible for us.
So some people would say that it really is an issue of Harris not being strong enough to stand up to a character like Benjamin Netanyahu. For our listeners, when we talk about this issue, we criticize the Israeli government. It's the government that makes these horrible decisions. It's the government that's, sending the military to kill civilians. And it's hard sometimes to distinguish. So Americans say, oh, you're anti-Israel. No, you're not anti-Israel. You're pro-peace. You want to support everybody, but it's a bad government. Is Harris strong enough to stand up to Netanyahu if she's elected president of the United States, do you think?
I think that the weight on her after the election will change. It's to be seen if she will, but there's no chance with Donald Trump or any other prospects. We need to take that chance and to fight. I think also, as I've said before, we have allies and we can wage that fight with those allies. And she knows about those allies. They will be her base. And so she will have to listen.
So your argument is that by supporting Harris, if she's elected, you'll be part of that administration. You'll be able to help make those decisions. You'll be a partner with other Democrats who support the Arab and Muslim community to help ensure that Harris stands up for what's right.
Well, I believe everything changes from the ground up. We've got this big leader theory in America, but look at Martin Luther King. He didn't do the civil rights movement. It was the young people from SNCC. It was the people who stood up, the people who died, the people who marched, and it was a ground up movement. We need to continue the ground up movement, whether it's in the Democratic Party and outside of the Democratic Party, with all our allies, with all our friends, with people of color, women, to make that fight palpable and continue to fight for peace. What I've been telling people is if you want the opportunity to continue to work for peace, this is the way to do it. And the other thing I will say is the election, it's not over after the election. We can keep up the struggle on the Middle East and so many other issues. It doesn't all have to be in government. We still have the street. We still have our communities. We still have our allies.
Now, you're the second person, by the way, who said what I believe, and I believe for a long time, power starts at the grassroots, not at the top. Once you convince your neighbor that you're right, then you're in a coalition with a group of people in your community who then grow, and you pick the Congress people. The Congress people don't pick the policies. It's the grassroots that does it. I think it was candidate for state rep in Illinois, Suzanne Acris, who is the wife of Dr. Sahar Sahlul, who I'm sure you know, who said that, we have to win local offices if we're going to make a difference on the foreign policy level. And it sounds like you kind of agree with that, basically. I do.
Well, I do, and I think that there are many venues for struggle. In America, we're convinced that you get to change things once, every 4 years or every 2 years. That's just not the truth. The truth is that you can make change every single day. Look at the Black Lives Movement. Look at the women's movement. Yes, there was change at the electoral level, but it came from the street, and that's where we need to base ourselves, as well as in the electoral arena.
My guest, Ishmael Ahmed. Ishmael, any other thoughts maybe that I didn't ask about that you think are important? But you're talking to Arab and Muslim voters in Michigan on Arab radio, and people will hear this maybe in some of the other states, but mostly in Michigan. What do you say to them, in a final pitch, only a few days before the election? What's most important to remind them?
Yeah, I would say to my brothers and sisters out there and the rest of the planetary citizens out there that this is life or death. For so many people, this is as important an election as I have ever seen. I know they say that every time. This is the most important election. Well, this really is. Please vote. And please don't vote for Donald Trump. And please vote for Kamala Harris so that we can continue the fight.
All right. My guest, Ishmael Ahmed, a part of the coalition of Arab American leaders who this week endorsed Kamala Harris for president, and who are out there working hard for her to see that she wins Michigan the way Biden did 4 years ago. Ishmael, thank you so much. It's always good to talk to you. It's been a long time. I hope to maybe after the election, we have you come back and look back on what happened and help us understand why things happened the way they did. Thank you so much, Ishmael.
I'll be glad to, and thank you for having me. And thank you all, brothers and sisters out there. We're in it together.
And we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll continue with our discussion on the presidential election and the fight for the Arab and Muslim vote right after these messages. We'll be right back right after these messages.
ArabNews.com, bringing you breaking news from across the Middle East and the latest on Arabs in America. Get inside the latest headlines with expert analysis and insights at ArabNews.com. Join over 5 million Facebook fans and over 10 million monthly readers. ArabNews.com, news that matters to you.
As the weather gets colder, it's a good idea to layer up with scarves, hats, and mittens. Another layer of protection this season is to get your flu and COVID-19 vaccines. You can get both vaccines at the same time. Talk to your healthcare provider or learn more at michigan.gov/COVID-flu-RSV and layer up for some added peace of mind. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
At Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic in Dearborn, we provide effective physical therapy sessions in order to limit pain and discomfort. Top Rehab provides physical therapy care for any diagnosis prescribed by a physician, and we regularly see and treat conditions such as stroke, TMJ, fibromyalgia, sciatica, joint pain, and more. We use a variety of pain management methods, including modalities, soft tissue mobilization, and therapeutic exercise. If you're in need of physical rehabilitation or physical therapy, get the highest quality health care at Top Rehab. Most insurance is accepted, and we're open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday 8 to 6, Tuesday and Thursday 8 to 5, and Saturday 10 till 2. Call for an appointment today at 313-846-0555. That's 313-846-0555. Choose Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic on Michigan Avenue in Dearborn. Life's too short to be in pain.
Ziyad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Dana, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
Every Thursday in Michigan at 5 p.m., award-winning columnist and journalist Ray Hanania hosts the Ray Hanania Radio Show, presented by the U.S. Arab Radio Network on WNZK AM 690 Radio and brought to you by Arab News newspaper. This season's focus is on the U.S. presidential elections. Will it be Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., or Dr. Jill Stein? Veteran political analysts and elected officials will join as guests. Join us every Thursday at 5 p.m. on WNZK AM 690 Radio for the Ray Hanania Radio Show, presented by the U.S. Arab Radio Network, a special on the presidential elections. Shows are rebroadcast each Monday at 5 p.m. Get to know more about the show at arabnews.com.
And welcome back to the Ray Hanania Radio Show here on WNZK AM 690 Radio, October 31st, 2024. And I have a great guest. My guest has been on a few times, and he's been really good about giving us updates on what's been happening out there in the election field. This obviously program was taped on Wednesday, being broadcast Thursday night. My guest is Bishara Bahbah, who is the chairman of the Arab Americans for Trump. Bishara, thank you so much for joining us on the radio program today.
Thank you very much for having me, Ray. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Now, give us a little overview first of Arab Americans for Trump has grown and grown ever since you and Dr. Masoud Boulos organized it together, and with his support and your support. Give us an overview over the last 6 months. What's happened and where are you in terms of your confidence regarding Trump's performance in a number of these swing states?
Well, we've been through ups and downs during those periods. We started working around May and organizing ourselves. And we started in Michigan because we felt that if we can carry Michigan, we will carry the presidency. So during that time, we've had numerous meetings with the Arab Americans, Muslim Americans, Chaldean Christians, Armenian Christians, and others, and the receptivity has been great. Now, certain segments of the population, for example, the Chaldean Christians and the Armenians and so on, they are traditionally supportive of the Republican Party based on social values and commonality between what they view as important as well vis-a-vis what the Republican Party feels that way. Now, with regard to the Arab and Muslim communities, the rage has been over Biden's unhinged support of Israel's war machinery against the Palestinians in Gaza and now against the Lebanese in Lebanon. So when Biden was running, we were up in the polls. And then when Harris was put on the ticket, we saw a dip in the polls for the president. And but I called it the honeymoon period, right, which materialized because over the last 6 weeks or so, we've seen that Trump has been going up in the polls, and right now the way we see it is that we will most likely carry Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, and if we carry Michigan, we block her path to the presidency, and President Trump will be reelected.
And does President Trump recognize how valuable your role has been? Because you're absolutely right. Arabs and Muslims have been kind of feeling on the outs with the Democrats, although you point very accurately that a lot of Arabs, and especially the Chaldeans, are very conservative and identify with the family values and the conservative movement. But do you feel that you've actually that the Arab and Muslim community is going to make a difference in this election for the president?
Honestly, I feel that the Arabs and Muslims, particularly in the swing states, are going to make it or break it. In other words, their vote will determine who the next president will be. And this is the first time in history where actually a subsegment of the population is playing the most critical part in who gets elected as president. We might not have the money that American Jews have and are pouring into both campaigns, but we have the votes. Without those votes, no matter how much money there are in the campaigns, nobody will get elected. And so we feel confident that we will carry Michigan, and we could very well carry Pennsylvania as well. Right now, the numbers are within the margin of error, but historically, it's been shown that the margin of error has undercounted the strength of President Trump in the elections. So there is an embedded advantage that the president has because the polls have undercounted his support in the swing states.
Yeah, I think traditionally polls, when you look at nationally, they give you an indication of what's happening. But in this case, I think that no polls are of any value except if you poll in those swing states where Arab Americans, where Biden barely beat by razor-thin margins Trump in 2020. So what happens in those swing states is so important. And I think the media has marginalized the role of Arabs and Muslims by not looking at those concentrated votes in those swing states where they can flip the vote, like in Michigan, where you are at today, correct?
Yes. Now, Nate Silver, who is a very well-known pollster, wrote an article a few days ago that appeared, I believe, in the New York Times that said essentially that from now on, he is no longer looking at the national polls because they are irrelevant.
Right.
And his firm does 400,000 simulations on a daily basis. Based on his simulations, and as of a few days ago, he indicated that the chances of Harris winning the presidency, particularly after looking at the swing states, is 0.3%.
Wow.
That is less than 1%.
Wow.
And that's based on 400,000 simulations. So, but at the same time, we're not taking anything for granted. We're doing our best. I am in Michigan. I have my colleagues on the campaign trail in many parts of the country to crisscrossing. I just came back from London actually to do a 1-hour Al Jazeera interview. And we believe that till Tuesday night, we're going to be working until the polls are closed. We're going to be working. We're not going to take anything or anyone for granted.
And explain to the audience, which is this is an Arab radio program, obviously. So you are talking to the Arab community in the greater Detroit region and the Muslim community. What do you say to them? Because the Democrats say, oh, Trump was terrible to the Arabs and Muslims, but they don't talk about the terrible policies that Biden broke. He promised things like the partnership that he never followed through with. He appointed Arabs to the administration, but muzzled them, prohibited them from talking. And then he went ahead and gave Israel all that money, over $110 billion, I think, to purchase the weapons that were used to kill not just Palestinians, but now Lebanese. When you talk to Arabs and Muslims, how does that message resonate with them when you explain that maybe there's some policies that, we disagree with Trump, but we're there, we can change it. But what do you say to them?
Well, I say first of all, I have to always say that 6 months ago, I was a Democrat, registered Democrat. And my anger at the Biden administration reached a level where I was not only not willing to vote for him, I wanted to punish him. And that extends to also Harris, because they have been enablers of the genocide against our people in Gaza, as well as the West Bank, and now in Lebanon. Enough is enough. Now, yes, people have said, well, President Trump talked about a Muslim ban. President Trump is no longer talking about a Muslim ban. President Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem. That's a plaque that was moved. It was not 43,000 Palestinians killed at the hands of Israel,
right,
with arms provided by the United States. And now we're seeing thousands of people getting killed in Lebanon. They're going to destroy, they're in the process of destroying half of Lebanon, all the way from South Beirut, all the way to the south. And that is unacceptable. If Harris comes to power, the Biden administration's policies will continue. And we will see Israel doing whatever the hell it wants to do against our people. So I tell them, you have a choice between a Harris administration that's going to continue killing our people, or you have a choice to vote for Trump, who has told us, me personally as well, that he wants to stop the wars immediately. He wants to lay the groundwork for a lasting peace agreements in the Middle East that are satisfactory to all parties in the region. And I'm saying all parties, emphasizing no exclusions here.
And this is the first time, isn't it, that former President Trump, when he was president, he didn't have a group of Arab Americans that he could consult when he was developing his policies, did he? You're the first Arab Americans for Trump that significantly has brought him support and also has his ear. As you pointed out, you and others have been meeting with him and talking with him and his staff. And I assume, and I want you to explain this, this offers a doorway or an opportunity that we've really never had in the past, correct?
That is absolutely true. I have to also say that Dr. Masad Boulos, who is Tiffany Trump's father-in-law, as we all know, has played a central role in that push. We also have seen the former Ambassador Richard Granholm play a key role as well in approaching and meeting with the Arab Muslim American communities, with the Christian Iraqi communities, with the Assyrians and others. There has never been a concerted effort like this in the three Trump campaigns for the presidency, 2016, 2020, and of course that has changed now in 2024, because we do have a contingency that is saying to the president, listen, we have a constituency that is critical for our success. We have to listen to them. And the president has been open-minded. He's been listening to them. He was seen on a platform last week in Michigan with Muslim leaders. I met with him personally in last Thursday in Arizona. And this has been a continuous affair. He just issued a statement regarding Lebanon, saying that he said that he would like to see peace in Lebanon. Now we are hoping that he would come out with a statement regarding Palestine. And this is a critical point, because if anybody is not going to vote for him, it's going to be because of the issue of Palestine among Muslims and Arab Americans.
And just for expectations for the Arab Muslim community, we're not saying that Trump is going to abandon Israel. There isn't a president who is ever going to abandon Israel. They're all going to support Israel. Harris, Biden, Trump, Obama, Clinton, Bush, they all supported Israel. What you're saying now is that that under Trump, with your involvement and showing how significant the Arabs are, he's going to be more likely to listen to the Arab and Muslim community and consider their views when deciding these policies, correct?
Absolutely. And you're right. We're not saying abandon Israel. Support Israel as much as you can. Don't support the genocide, right, and support the rights of Palestinians to a state of their own, to independence, national dignity, and end the wars. For God's sake, people are getting killed left and right. End those wars. And the president has said that he will put an end to the wars in the Middle East.
And finally, one last question. to address those Arabs and Muslims who say, oh, no, I don't like Trump, but I'm going to support Harris. What do you say to them? Because they say, well, he was so terrible to us, allegedly. I mean, and I think it's the media that exaggerates a lot of stuff. I don't trust the mainstream American media, not the Middle East media, but the U.S. media. I don't think that Arab and Muslims have been treated properly by the U.S. media. And what do you say to those Arabs who are supporting Harris that might convince them that, they need to switch and give Trump a chance in this election to do something more than what he did in the past?
Well, first of all, I encourage all Arab Muslim Americans to participate in the political process, whether they are on the Democratic side or Republican side or the Green side. I don't have a problem with that. And I love to see more and more involvement. However, for those who are going to vote for Harris, it comes to the bottom line, which is, if Harris gets reelected, it means that Gaza will go from a genocide to a complete annihilation. If those Arab Americans and Muslim Americans are willing to have that on their conscience, go vote for Harris. If not, vote for Trump or stay home.
And Harris is in power, and Biden are in power. They could have stopped not just the genocide in Gaza, but the horrific attacks in Lebanon, which has expanded Arab American support in this election. I think it really turned a lot of Lebanese Americans away from, what they traditionally might have supported in terms of, the Democratic Party. They're in charge. They're on the controls. They could stop it today if they wanted to, right?
They have this administration, whether it's Biden or Harris, have zero leverage over the Israelis. It's not it's the tail wagging the dog. And it's unbelievable. I mean, the United States has lost respect among countries of the world. It has lost respect in its leadership in the world because they have been unable to influence the Israelis in any form or shape. We're not even just talking about stopping arms to Israel. We're talking about allowing food, medicine, shelter to the Palestinians in Gaza. For God's sakes, they are dying on a daily basis. The Israelis are bombing shelters, hospitals, and schools. What else can be done? They're fishing in a bowl. There is no Hamas anymore. They're fishing in a bowl. And they're killing people in front of everybody. This is the first war in history that has been viewed by people on a minute-by-minute basis. And that's a shame. It's a shame on Israel, and it's a shame on the United States for allowing that to happen.
I want to thank my guest, Dr. Bishara Bahbah, who is the chairman of Arab Americans for Trump, for taking the time to talk to us during these final days before the election, which is coming up on Tuesday, November 5th. He's in Michigan. They really feel that is going to be the critical state coming up. We're going to be watching, and I hope to talk to you right after the election and continue working with you moving forward. Thank you so much, Dr. Bahbah.
Thank you very much, Ray, for having me. I appreciate it. I look forward to being on your show once again.
All right. Give my regards to Dr. Boulos also. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you. Bye-bye.
And we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll continue with our discussion on the presidential election and the fight for the Arab and Muslim vote right after these messages. We'll be right back right after these messages.
ArabNews.com, bringing you breaking news from across the Middle East and the latest on Arabs in America. Get inside the latest headlines with expert analysis and insights at ArabNews.com. Join over 5 million Facebook fans and over 10 million monthly readers. ArabNews.com, news that matters to you.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Najee Abood 734-744-9796.
Get ready for an amazing experience at Ishtar Restaurant on 15 Mile Road in Sterling Heights. Enjoy excellent hospitality from owners Ali Al-Baghdadi and Fatty Bonham, serving the best in Mediterranean food. Try Chef Ali Al-Baghdadi's famous shawarma, the best Iraqi grills and food, and the best Arabic and international dishes. Dine in our authentic atmosphere or take out. Call 586-698-2585 or check us out on Facebook. Ishtar Restaurant practices all CDC guidelines and is open every day 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Have an amazing experience today at Ishtar Restaurant, 3625 15 Mile Road, Sterling Heights. Arab news columnist and writer Ray Hanania will host a special focus on the U.S. presidential elections every week on the Ray Hanania Radio Show, presented by the U.S. Arab Radio Network on WNZK AM 690 Radio in Michigan and brought to you by Arab News Newspaper. Every Thursday from 5 till 6 p.m. on WNZK AM 690 AM radio, experts from elected officials to political analysts will analyze the presidential election campaign, as well as the results and aftermath, assessing policies that will impact Arabs and Muslims in America and the Middle East. Join us every Thursday at 5 p.m. on WNZK AM 690 Radio for the Ray Hanania Radio Show, special on the presidential elections. Get to know more about the show at ArabNews.com.
Thank you for listening to the Ray Hanania Radio Show, brought to you by the U.S. Arab Radio Network and sponsored by Arab News, the leading English language newspaper in the Middle East at ArabNews.com. This season, the Ray Hanania Radio Show focuses on the U.S. presidential elections, the battle between the major party candidates, former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris, and the third party contenders who could push the election into the House, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Dr. Jill Stein. We'll be back next Thursday with more special guests to help us understand the role Arab and Muslim voters in America are playing in the presidential election. Check out our page at arabnews.com/Ray Radio Show for all of the programs that we've recorded and all of the story links that have been written about the program. And also you can go to my website at Hanania.com, Hanania, Hanania.com for my columns, my radio shows, my podcasts, and all my writing at Arab News. Have a great week, everybody. See you next Thursday. Good evening.
ArabNews.com, bringing you breaking news from across the Middle East and the latest on Arabs in America. Get inside the latest headlines with expert analysis and insights at ArabNews.com. Join over 5 million Facebook fans and over 10 million monthly readers. ArabNews.com, news that matters to you.
Arab news columnist and writer Ray Hanania will host a special focus on the U.S. presidential elections every week on the Ray Hanania Radio Show, presented by the U.S. Arab Radio Network on WNZK AM 690 Radio in Michigan and brought to you by Arab News Newspaper. Every Thursday from 5 till 6 p.m. on WNZK AM 690 AM radio, experts from elected officials to political analysts will analyze the presidential election campaign, as well as the results and aftermath, assessing policies that will impact Arabs and Muslims in America and the Middle East. Join us every Thursday at 5 p.m. on WNZK AM 690 Radio for the Ray Hanania Radio Show, special on the presidential elections. Get to know more about the show at ArabNews.com.